She grabbed my hair and yanked hard. I didn't scream. My neck snapped back, my heels shifted, but I didn't fall. Not in front of 500 people at the Westin lobby, 4:32 p.m., June 8th. She let go like I was dirty. And then came the sound, a single clap. Then another. It was my son. My son clapping, like he'd just watched justice. I didn't say a word. I stood there while her father came up and spat at my feet. "That's what you deserve," he muttered. I heard someone gasp behind me. Maybe the concierge. Maybe no one. My eyes blurred for a second, but I didn't blink. I just bent down and picked up the pin that had fallen from my bun. My hand shook. Not from fear, from humiliation. I saw a little boy in a suit, maybe 8 years old, staring wide-eyed. His mom pulled him away. I wanted to tell him, "Don't look at me like this." I used to be someone's whole world once. 5 years I've helped Camilla, covered parts of the wedding cost, even signed the ballroom reservation under my name when her credit didn't go through. And that's what they do in front of strangers. In front of my granddaughter. Don't tell me it's still family. If I'm family, why does your love require my silence? As I stood frozen, someone touched my arm. Lorena, my old co-worker from the clinic. She happened to be there with her husband. She whispered, "You want me to record a statement? I saw everything." I couldn't even answer. I just nodded. Then I heard her say, low and firm, "That boy used to look at you like the sun. He saw this too." I hated myself in that moment, not because they hurt me, but because I'd seen this coming for months. The way she corrected me in front of people. The way he stopped calling. I just kept making excuses. I thought if I stayed kind, I'd stay included. I walked to the front desk. My hand was still shaking, but not from fear. From what I was about to ask next. He clapped. Once. Then again. Slow like a joke that only he found funny. Mateo didn't even look ashamed. He leaned back slightly. Hands in his pockets like what just happened was deserved. Behind him, Camilla's bridesmaids stood frozen in their pale blue dresses. I caught a glimpse of Table 6's floral invoice still taped behind the bar, paid by M. Reyes, 4/9/20s. That was my card. But apparently not my dignity. I looked at my son, and I didn't recognize him. Not his stance, not his smirk. Not the way he turned his body away like I was background noise. I remember the boy who used to run to me with scraped knees. This man? He didn't even flinch when I stumbled. He just approved it. Like applause made it acceptable. I stood straighter and walked past him. Didn't touch him. Didn't ask why. But in my head, I wanted to scream. If you still call me family, why did your first instinct involve applause, not concern? I reached the front desk. The young man behind it, Daniel, his name tag said, looked nervous. I told him I needed the general manager. I had a copy of the ballroom contract. I wasn't yelling, just asking for access. He hesitated until someone else stepped up from behind Ms. Brooks' mid-40s, sharp eyes, navy dress. She gave me a small nod and said, "I remember you. You booked under the winter promo last October, right?" I said yes. She glanced at the lobby mess behind me and added, "This your event?" I said, "Not anymore." I hated how calm my voice was. I hated more that I still cared whether Mateo would regret it later. There was a second, just one, where I thought, if I do this, will I lose him forever? My granddaughter too. But then I remembered what I told him last year, when he asked me to co-sign Camilla's car lease. If you can pay it, why do you need my name? And he laughed like I was being petty. I pressed my palms together. Not to pray, just to keep them from shaking as I followed Ms. Brooks toward the office. I took the envelope out of my purse and placed it on the counter in front of Daniel, the receptionist. His fingers froze on the keyboard. "Can you check the reservation name for Ballroom C?" I asked. Calm, like I hadn't just been humiliated 10 minutes ago. He glanced around, unsure, then picked up the envelope. My handwriting was still clear on the label. Westin Ballroom C, June 8th, Reyes family. The ink had smudged slightly in one corner, where my hand had been sweating. Ms. Brooks returned before he could respond. She looked at the envelope, then at me. "Let's go to the back," she said, and nodded toward the side office. Inside, she booted up her computer, pulled up the internal records. Click, click, scroll, then silence. "Yes," she said, slowly turning the monitor toward me. "Reservations under your name. You signed the winter special on October 3rd. Prepaid. $3,800 total. Non-transferable without your written permission." I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just said, "Then I'd like to suspend access. Effective now." She blinked. "Are you sure I was?" But it still stung, because a part of me kept asking, did they think I'd never remember I signed it? Or did they think I'd be too ashamed to say anything in public? Either way, they bet on my silence. Again, back in the hallway, I ran into Lorena. She pulled me aside and whispered, "They're still setting up like nothing happened." Camilla just asked the florist to move the arch closer to the lobby entrance. Then she looked at me carefully. "You okay?" I nodded. She sighed. "You don't owe them silence." And still my stomach turned. I thought of my granddaughter Sophia, 7 years old. What if this ruined her memory of the day? What if all she remembers is that her grandma caused a scene? But then again, what kind of lesson would I be teaching her if I let people step on me just because they called me family? I stepped back into the lobby, just as the catering staff wheeled out trays of wine glasses. One tipped, clinked loudly, startled everyone just enough to buy me a few seconds more. I pulled out the folder from my bag, the original contract I signed back in October at the Marriott branch on 9th and Lacey. I'd kept it stapled in a zip pouch with the receipt for the catering deposit. Page 3, bottom left, a clause I hadn't paid much attention to back then. It said the ballroom usage could be revoked by the payee if an incident of harassment or abuse occurred on hotel grounds before the event began. No lawyer wrote that for me. It was a general clause, but it was mine to invoke. I handed the page to Ms. Brooks. She read it quietly, then asked, "Did that happen? Today?" I nodded. In front of staff, guests, and cameras, I said. She exhaled and said, "All right. Then I can delay the setup until we confirm internal review." They wanted everything handed to them, date, location, vendor list, my name on the lease, and still called me ungrateful when I hesitated to co-sign the wine order. Camilla had texted me 3 weeks ago. "It's just $100, you're already paying most of it." No, please. Just assumption. I walked back toward the concierge where Lorena was still standing. She raised her brows. "They're sending Camilla's aunt to look for you," she whispered. "You want me to intercept?" I shook my head. I wasn't hiding. Let them walk toward me this time. To be honest, part of me felt dumb for not reading the contract closely the first time, for not questioning why they insisted I put it under my name just for the hotel points. What kind of family starts a favor with paperwork and ends it with a slap? I remembered something Camilla once said over brunch at the Cheesecake Factory back in March, when we were still pretending to like each other. She laughed and said, "Your generation signs everything like it's gospel." I laughed along. I should have paid more attention. I turned to Ms. Brooks and asked her calmly, "Can you hold off setting the next ballroom until we confirm the clause conditions?" She nodded, picked up the walkie, and started speaking in codes. I didn't need to understand. I just needed time, 10 minutes, maybe less. Enough to let someone else make the next mistake. I sat in the hotel business center around 8:45 p.m. on Friday night, right after the rehearsal dinner. My shoes were off. My phone was plugged in, and I rewound the video Diego had sent me again. The sound wasn't great at first, but once I put on the wired headphones from the gift shop, It came through clear. Her voice. Camilla's voice. Laughing, whispering, "Make her trip. If she falls, we win the crowd." A beat later, another voice her cousin maybe answered. "She's slow. One shove and she's out." I paused, pressed rewind, played it again. There was no doubt, no confusion. They weren't angry. They weren't emotional. They were rehearsing. I'd trusted Diego. He worked IT at the venue. I never asked him to spy. He sent it with a one-line text, "Ma'am, I think you should see this before tomorrow." His mom used to work with me at the public library. Raised him well. I sat there in that gray office chair and realized I'd been so focused on surviving the slap, I forgot to question why it happened. It wasn't a slip. It was planned. And I had proof. They always say, "We're family when it's convenient." But if I'm family, why plan to humiliate me in front of 500 people? Why joke about watching me fall? If you're paying for the wedding but they're using your name for the hotel credit and contracts, who's really in control? I clicked Save As, named the file, Lobby Audio 9pm.mp4, dragged it to a USB, then emailed it to myself, then forwarded it to one person, Mara, my cousin who used to do HR at a construction firm. She replied, fast, "Back it up. Don't send it to them yet. Sit still. Let them move first." Truth is, I felt stupid. There were signs. Camilla switching the guest list without telling me. My son asking for just one more favor every week. Me nodding, saying yes. Afraid if I didn't, I'd lose the little place I still had in their world. I didn't lose it. They just erased it. I closed the browser, checked the USB, then zipped it in my glasses case. Because if tomorrow went the way they planned, I'd need it in reach. I tilted the glass just enough for a bit of water to hit the marble floor near her feet. Not a puddle. Just enough to make her step around it. I even apologized softly, politely, like it was truly an accident. I was holding the same glass she'd handed me 20 minutes earlier, with a fake smile, and no ice. She stopped, scowled, and snapped, "Can't you be useful for once?" Same tone, same words, same timing as in the recording. My heart didn't even race. I was listening for a pattern, and she gave it to me like a rehearsed line. To anyone else in that hotel lobby, it looked like a small irritation, a bride having a moment. But to me, it was confirmation. They didn't slip. They practiced this. I caught my reflection in the mirror across from the bar. I looked calm, but inside, I was asking myself a question I had avoided for too long. If they need me so little, why do they still need everything to be under my name? My son always said things like, "It's just easier if the hotel sees your card or you've got the mileage status. But if he's a man now, with his own accounts and his own family, why's he still signing my email at the bottom of venue forms?" Lorena, yes, the same front desk staff, walked by with a fresh stack of place cards. She leaned in close enough and said, "Want me to make a few go missing?" She grinned. I shook my head, half laughing. "Just keep yours," I told her. "It might come in handy." But even with all that control, I had a moment, just 10 seconds, where I looked at my own hands and thought, did I raise a son who claps when I'm shoved? Did I miss the part where he stopped seeing me as someone worth protecting? I swallowed it, wiped my hand, walked slowly past the reception counter and toward the DJ booth. He saw me. I gave a subtle nod. He nodded back. One more cue, and it would be time. At 4:47 p.m., I slipped the USB across the counter to the audio technician in the side room behind the ballroom. His polo had a faded Golden Glen Resort logo. I didn't explain much, just looked him in the eye and said, "If anyone asks, say it's part of my toast." He looked at me for a second too long, then shrugged. "Got it. You want it cued right after the slideshow?" "Yes, but only when I give a signal. If I nod, play it. If I shake my head, trash it." I could tell he'd seen family drama before. He didn't ask for more. Outside, the mood was changing. Waiters started pouring champagne. Someone rolled in a tiered cake covered in fondant roses. I watched my son laugh with her family near the flower arch. My daughter-in-law's father wore a jacket with elbow patches and smugness. Her mother had that look people get when they think the win is permanent. Back in the hallway, my sister-in-law Rosa caught my wrist. "You sure you want to go up there?" she asked. I hesitated. "I'm not ruining anything. I'm just correcting the script." She let go and muttered, "You're calmer than I'd be." I wasn't. I just hid it better. Truth is, I had stared at that USB in my purse for 2 hours straight. I almost threw it away in the ladies' room. I thought about my grandkids, about how one day they'd ask why I didn't say something. And I'd have no answer. And yet, I still felt shame. For raising a son who didn't flinch when I was yanked. For pretending all year that we were fine. For signing the vendor checks in June without reading the final approval clause. They said it was family. But if this were truly about family, why was I the only one expected to fund it and swallow it? The MC tapped the mic. "Before dinner is served, the mother of the groom would like to say a few words." I stood. My palms didn't shake this time. I walked toward the stage. Her voice echoed through the ballroom speakers. "If she falls, play dumb." Then someone escort her out. Laughter followed her laughter, crisp and unmistakable. I watched a few guests pause mid-sip. One man dropped his fork. Someone near the head table whispered, "Was that her?" It played in full. No edits. Her tone. The date stamp. The echo of rehearsal in her voice. Not rage. Control. Planning. For a second, no one moved. Not even the servers. Then came the gasps. One woman actually covered her mouth. Her father, who had spit in my face earlier, sat frozen. His jaw was slack, like he'd just realized he'd bet on the wrong side. I didn't speak. Didn't smile. Just stood there, holding the mic in both hands. That was enough. Matteo stood slowly. Camilla hissed something at him and grabbed her clutch. She stormed out, heels clacking against the ballroom tile. Matteo hesitated, then followed, but halfway to the door, he turned around and looked at me. I couldn't read his face. Shock, shame, or just calculation. The event planner rushed over from the side. "Ma'am, do you want us to pause dinner service?" From a nearby table, my friend Darlene, who flew in from Tampa and wore that ridiculous sun hat indoors, leaned in and muttered, "You waited too long, but damn. You timed that right. I should have said thank you, but my chest ached. I wasn't proud. I was tired. Tired of pretending that love meant funding disrespect. Tired of smiling through bruises, even invisible ones. I thought back to the day I signed the venue checks. May 4th. Camilla handed them to me in the kitchen, saying it would simplify the planning. I didn't even ask why both were made out to her name. They say we're family like it's a trump card. But if we're really family, why is everything always in my name and their control? I handed the mic to the MC and walked back to my seat. I passed the cake table. Vanilla buttercream, $1, $200. I'd paid it. I sat down, exhaled, and poured myself some lukewarm coffee. I placed the room key on top of their wrapped gift flat, quiet, intentional. It was room 618, the one I paid $320 for per night, so her mother could rest between makeup and photos. No one saw me do it. No need for a speech. I wasn't angry, just done. The ballroom was humming again, people pretending nothing happened. The DJ switched to some forced upbeat track. Matteo hadn't returned. Camilla's side of the family looked like they'd swallowed bricks, but my job wasn't to soothe them anymore. I stepped away from the table and walked past the drink station. Someone offered champagne. I declined. Darlene caught up with me by the coat rack near the back. "You sure about this?" she asked. I nodded. She looked at the key still sitting there. "Well, That says more than 1,000 speeches. I didn't even take the elevator. I needed the stairs, needed the movement to shake off the years I gave too freely. Each step down from the 6th floor was like peeling off the layers of silence I'd worn too long. At the lobby, I paused by the fountain where they took engagement photos last March. I'd brought snacks that day. Camilla said I made them look cheap with my grocery bag. They kept saying, "We're family." But if you love someone, do you humiliate them in public? If it's really about unity, why am I the one who signs, pays, and gets spit on? My feet slowed near the entrance. I wasn't leaving out of bitterness. I left because I realized staying didn't make me part of anything real. I thought about my grandson. I still want to be in his life, but that doesn't mean I stay anywhere that teaches him power, looks like cruelty. The bellhop opened the door for me. A gust of February air hit my face. I pulled my coat tighter. My phone buzzed Mateo's name. I didn't pick up. I kept walking. I sat at the counter of a roadside diner just off Route 28. It was 9:42 a.m. on a Sunday. The waitress wore a Debbie name tag and poured my coffee without asking. The mug had a chip on the rim. I kept staring at it. No calls came in, no texts. Just that silence, thick, stubborn final. The hotel had canceled the ballroom booking. Some clause in the ownership transfer paperwork gave them the right. Mateo and Camilla tried arguing, but paperwork doesn't argue back. I heard from Darlene that guests left by the dozens. Some didn't even get their coats back. But me, I didn't feel triumphant. Just hollow. Like I'd finally exhaled after holding my breath for 3 years. I stirred my coffee. Sugar clinked at the bottom. Debbie asked, "You want eggs or just the coffee?" I shook my head. Just the coffee. She nodded, like she understood something I hadn't said out loud. People think it's dramatic to walk away from your own child. But I want to ask, if your child lets someone hurt you in public and claps, is it still you who's walking away? Or did they already do it first? A man near the window opened a newspaper. The crinkle made me jump. I felt foolish. My hands were still a little shaky. Not from fear anymore, maybe from letting go. I kept thinking about the rehearsal dinner last week. How Mateo never looked up when I handed him the ring box from his father. How I'd ignored the way he slipped it straight into his jacket without a word. I missed signs. I wanted so badly to believe we were still family. That love alone would tether things. Debbie refilled my cup. "You okay, hon?" she asked quietly. I nodded. Just needed a minute to feel like myself again. She gave me a small smile, wiped the counter, and walked off. I watched the steam rise from my mug, slow and steady. The phone in my bag buzzed once. Then again. I didn't rush to check.